You're listening to Galaxy of Film. All right, and welcome back to the Brainips of Galaxy of Film. I'm, of course, your host, Max, and while I am co-hostless this week, I am certainly not alone. First up, we do have our man. He's always here pretty often. Goodness gracious, man. It's been like 150 episodes you've been coming on for now, which is ridiculous, too. We got Brian from Drink the Movies. How are you doing?
I am doing great, Max. Thanks for having me back again. Yeah, it seems like we have done quite a few episodes together now, which is always an awesome time for me to come on. We've been just missing each other like ships in the night, getting our schedules lined up. But we're coming together today for a really fun and interesting one. I think it's going to be a little bit different than your audience is used to getting from Galaxy of Film, but really excited to talk about what we've got going on this week.
That is right, man. That's right. We got some unique films this week. We also have a very special guest star. Of course, like you guys can see by the title, we are discussing none other than Muppet Classic Theater and Captain EO. And what are these films, you may ask? We'll get to in just a second. But I want to go ahead and introduce none other than Terri Hardin. How are you doing? And welcome to Galaxy of Film.
Good, good. Thank you for having me.
Of course, it's such a pleasure to get you on here. Some of your film credits include, of course, the two movies we're talking about today. You've worked on Ghostbusters, you've worked on The Dinosaur Show, which is a Henson's product as well. You've worked on Theodore Rex, even Muppets Tonight, which was short-lived, but still such a really cool Muppet project. Tell us a bit about your career real quick. How would you describe it?
Oh my gosh, my husband used to say, when people ask him what he'd do, he said he was a hat rack. And I really took that. I'm an obsessive creative, so I thought that people were like me in that if a door of opportunity opens and it looks interesting, I just go through it and worry about how to do whatever I have to do after I've gone through it. Well, many people don't do that. So I realized that this is something that I wanted to help others do. But at the time, it was just a matter of, I want to learn this, I want to learn that, I like this, I tried acting, and I'm a mixed race kid, which means I'm half black and I'm half white. I was born in 1957.
Mm-hmm.
So there were still segregated water fountains and there were still segregated rooms. And so my father, who is a black man, and my mother, who's a white lady, they could not marry in their state. They had to elope.
Okay.
And as a result, my father sat me down and said, you look different. And because of that, you could have adversity in your life. Just remember to lead with tolerance and to keep an open mind. And they realized at an early age, my mother was 23 when she had me way too young. Oh no, she was 19. My dad was 23.
Okay.
And mom realized right away that I was one of these children that needed to be watched all the time, because if there was a fork and there was a light socket, I was due to bring them together. And my mom was so young, she was like, this kid's gonna put me in the hospital. So my dad says a lot of times you just let the whirling dervish whirl, and I just was drawing and creating and doing crazy stuff at a young age. And art was my escape if there was adversity, which I did have bullying. But you can imagine that you're at a park, your dad takes you to a park, and you see all these kids, at the water fountain. You may have that memory of a water fountain and how your dad picked you up because you couldn't reach the fountain, and put your arms out like an airplane and you flew in to get your water or whatever.
Yeah.
But when I turned my father and said, I'm thirsty, can you come pick me up? He motioned for me to come to him. And when I went over to him, he said, we can't do that. We'll get water at home. And that's because had he touched me, he could have been arrested or killed. So that's a kind of a scary thing to tell your daughter.
Yeah.
It's kind of a rough thing for a little kid to have in their head when they're only 2 or 3 years old. What? Why would they do that, Dad?
Yeah.
Thing.
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine. Goodness.
Yeah, pretty wild.
Yeah.
Because my father told me, try to understand the other guy, try to be understanding of them. And you can't always, because bullies are just, in many cases, you never know what their deal is. But I did my best, and art was the escape. So career-wise, you spoke of several things. Yeah, I just would go and do something. Puppets came into my life when I saw Sherry Lewis and
Hmm.
Lamb Chop, and I was being bullied, so I built one of my first things at 6 years old was I made a lamb chop puppet, and that was my confidant. When
Hmm.
I couldn't talk to my parents about things that were happening in my life, I didn't want to worry them or whatever. I just talked to Lamb Chop. Lamb Chop and I would have full on conversations. So that was my early puppet career. And then in 82, I did a McDonald's chicken McNugget commercial. I used to make the chicken McNuggets. The
Oh,
fourth
really?
computer generation, I built them for a
Hmm.
company. And I was flown my first time flying first class, and that I vowed that would not be the last time flying first class. But I flew first class to New York, and when I was in New York, we did the commercial. And then my mentor, Tony Urbano, said he wanted to go to the opera. And I'm like, gosh, I'm barely out of high school. And I'm like, I've never been to the opera, but I had thought a bit too long, and all the other puppeteers had disappeared, and it was just him and me. And he goes, "Come on, please, it's the Met." And I said, "Well, what do I get to do? Can you help me do something?" And he said, "What do you want?" And I said, "I want to go see Jim Henson Studios." And so I went to Jim Henson Studios. And back then, there were three puppeteers, were three women to every 30 men.
Okay.
Jim saw me. He
Hmm.
locked eyes on me and said, "This girl's probably good because she's standing with Tony." And
Mm.
when I went back home, Jim Henson called me and invited me to New York. And I said no.
What?
Whoa.
I told Jim Henson no. I admit it wholeheartedly. And as you might imagine, he was thrilled that I said no. No, he was really
Oh.
upset. And he said, "Why would you say no to me?" And I said, "Because you work in Manhattan, and it's so noisy and it's so loud, and it never is quiet, and
Hmm.
I just don't think I could do my best job for you." And he said, "Well," I said, "But I do. I want to work with you more, very, very badly." And he said, "Well, what makes you think you can?" And I said, "Dave Goles lives in Northern California, and Steve Whitmire lives in Baltimore, and
Hmm.
you know, gone, I said, Kevin Clash lives in Baltimore. And he said, "Oh, you've been doing your homework." I said, "Well, I have to, because I do. I want to work for you." And he said, "All right, then." And he hung up the phone. And then in 89, he came to California, and he called me and he said, "I've just sold the Muppets to Disney, and I'm auditioning puppeteers. And you better come and audition. And if you're not good, I'm going to embarrass you for the rest of your life. You will not live it down." And I said, "Okay, bring it on." And that's how and then after I auditioned, which if you've got time for this story, I'll tell you. But anyway, after I auditioned and he hired me, he
Hmm.
said, "I want to see your portfolio," because he had noticed that I built my characters very different from the way many puppeteers do his versions, the pie plate, but I don't do that. I do my own. And he saw them and he wanted to know how I was creating them and stuff. We were actually designing a show when he passed,
Hmm.
and the show is mine, so I may recreate it at some point. But
Oh.
yeah, yeah, it was great to work. It was another dream come true, sitting opposite someone who admires you and says, "I love these. Can we make a show
Hmm.
that's involving something like this?" And I said, "Yeah."
I can only imagine what that's like. That's,
Amazing.
that's like
Yeah.
that's like Paul McCartney complimenting someone playing guitar.
You faint a lot. You feel like you're going to faint a lot because you're like, "Is this guy really saying? Is he? Am I sure he's not talking to someone
Yeah.
behind me?" I mean, I'm young, and I'm just looking at him like,
Mm.
and I was a big fan of Frank Oz. I was more wanting to meet Frank Oz because I heard all the different voices Frank Oz did. And Jim always sounded like Jim, no matter what character he did. He sounded like Kermit the Frog to me. So, so I was like, I really want to meet the guy who does all the different voices. But I realized once I met Jim that it's that childlike quality that he had,
Hmm.
and the vision
Mhm.
that he had that really made him super special. He was always a big kid. So always joking around and always teasing, because I'm really good to tease because I'm so gullible. So even all the films, they go, oh, she's really good because she actually believes the story I'm weaving, the yarn I'm telling. She's getting all sucked in. I can see it. I love it.
That's funny.
Yeah.
No, I love that though. I love there's such positivity still remaining for the legacy of Henson too. We had discussed a couple of months ago, actually, back some Muppet Babies going forward, discussing some Henson stuff. So I love it. Absolutely love it. And of course, we are discussing again Muppets today. Like we're talking about Muppets Classic Theater, which is a film that you're part of. This came out, I believe, in '94, if I'm not mistaken, and this was a straight-to-video Muppet film.
Yeah.
Now, Brian, when was the first time you watched Muppet Classic Theater? Did you catch this in the '90s at all?
The
Yeah,
first
I
time, the first
did.
uh,
I'll say I did. Did you?
no,
Brian?
no.
No.
The first time I saw Muppet Classic Theater was on Sunday, Max, when you asked me to check it out, and I said I'm not really very familiar with that, and I even asked my wife, who is head and shoulders above me when it comes to Muppet knowledge. She
Mhm.
absolutely loves the Muppets, grew up with it, and she wasn't familiar with it either. So you and I were talking, and we ran down a copy of it, so we both got a chance to watch it. But yeah, I was not familiar with it at all. I apparently missed the home VHS release, and then I don't think it ever did like a DVD compilation release here in the States. I think there was one maybe in Europe, if you were lucky enough to get one of those, but
Mhm.
it was completely under my radar. So I'm pretty new to the Muppet Classic Theater, as it were.
Well, honestly, back then there were no DVDs, so the VHS was the way you got it or forget about it.
Yeah.
And I was cast in that because I had done a few other things with Jim and Frank. And what Jim loved to do was he liked to fit puppets to your personality. I
Okay.
think that's why when Gonzo is so good with Dave Goles, because
Mhm.
Dave Goles is secretly Gonzo, even though he tries to put on airs like he's a little more than that. He's Gonzo. I'm sorry, he just is. and and Ralph the dog is all of these characters that they do are, and I think that's the way it is with puppeteers. You tap in you're an actor. You really are an actor. A puppeteer is an actor. They just act through their arm.
Mhm.
All of that energy that actors have with their face and their body language has to go out and up into the arm
Sure.
when
Mhm.
you do those kind of puppets. Now, audio and animatronic puppets, which I've done as well, that's different. That's working with the team. Someone's inside the outfit, the suit, and they are bringing the body to life while you bring the face to life through radio control, which is amazing, like dinosaurs. So,
Okay.
Mhm.
Muppet Mini Classics, Jim just thought it would be great because there was a horse and a zebra in some of the group sequences. I was background characters. Most of the people that did Muppet Mini Classics were his real team.
Mhm.
So but it was great because you got to meet all of the Muppeteers that you watched uh when you were a kid. So you're
Yeah.
like, oh my God, you do Robin, you know.
That's so cool. I was surprised to
Yeah.
see him in this. We'll get to that in a little bit, of course, like what this project actually is. But yeah, no, that's wonderful to hear. And kind of going off what you said too, Brian, like this was something that was in the back of my mind of like when it comes to like my
Hmm.
Muppet knowledge. I the only time I've seen Muppet Classic Theater other than its podcast was actually like at a thrift shop. Funny enough. Like
Okay.
they had a TV that was like on the counter, and I remember buying other like VHS tapes or DVDs. I was probably like 7, man, to be honest with you. I was really, really young. And for whatever reason, they were playing Muppet Classic Theater there. And I somehow convinced my mom to like hit eject and to buy that, like out of the TV kind of thing.
Okay.
See, I had that and I watched bits of it as a kid, kind of like just random, some of the 6 stories basically, like not in its all entirety. Um, but yeah, like I kind of forgot most about this except for Gonzo as Rumpelstiltskin. Like that's something I
Yeah,
don't think I'll ever forget for some reason.
pretty wild.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But overall, Muppet Classic Theater is a pretty unique entry. Obviously, we've got our Muppet films, our traditional ones. You know, Muppets, the Muppet Movie, Muppets Take Manhattan, Great Muppet Caper. Um, but there's this weird period of the Muppets where they are doing like some straight to home video stuff and like just adaptation stuff too. We have Kermit's Swamp Years, where it's a younger Kermit, like origin story almost. We have Muppets Wizard of Oz, which is their take on, of course, Wizard of Oz. We had what Muppet Treasure Island as well, which I think is the most popular of the like weird Muppet films out there. But then there's also like things like this, of course, too, which kind of more fall under the Swamp Years category, in my opinion, but are still hidden gems too. So Muppet Classic Theater, this is the Muppets telling six classic fairy tale stories. We have the Three Little Pigs, we have the Midas Touch, the Boy Who Cries Wolf, Rumpelstiltskin, the Emperor's New Clothes, featuring Fozzie, which is great. And the Elves and the Shoemaker, which is pretty cool because instead of elves, they're Elvises. But I think the most unique thing about this, which is something we don't really see until I think Muppets in Space, is that Gonzo and Rizzo are kind of the main characters of this one. They're hosting the whole event instead of it being Kermit, which is pretty cool. And it feels very meta in the sense of like, all right, this is not the Muppet Show. This could still be the Muppet Theater. This is them trying
Mhm.
something else in their own lane, which I like. But yeah, this is definitely a really, really unique one. Everything's pretty short. It feels kind of like almost like a Saturday morning cartoon. Every section is like 12 minutes longish kind of thing.
Mhm.
And then kind of just keeps it going forward. So Terri, how were you involved in this one specifically? Like, what was this call like for Muppet Classic Theater? How was this project pitched to you?
It was pitched to me in that they said, we need some people. Jim said, Terri, will you come and do some of the ancillary characters?
Hmm.
It's just like you said, all of those characters that are in the foreground have people that created them, developed them, and they're the original team. So we were the people that were, I say it's like food. They were the soup and we were the seasoning. And so in the Rumpelstiltskin one that you talk about, there's a sequence where they sing, "Gotta get that name, gotta get that name, gotta
Yeah.
get that name. We gotta get it, we've got to." And they wanted to make sure that the songs were not indicative of the original Muppet Show. That
Okay.
was the goal, was to say that we are all Muppets, not just Kermit. So you're very
Mhm.
spot on there. It was just Jim saying the Muppets can be, anybody can host it as in that body of creatures. And I played a horse and got to get that name. And then in one of the others, I played a zebra.
Hmm.
And I think Jim cast me just so he could put me in a zebra puppet because I'm half black, half white. Ha,
It's
ha,
awesome though.
ha. And that was kind of Jim's humor. He celebrated who you were by, saying, "I want you to play this." I go, "Zebras are my favorite animals." And he goes, "I kind of thought so, but it's true. They are. They're one of my favorites." But it was very funny because to this day, I say, yeah, he was first to cast me as a zebra. And he said, "I just thought it suited you." I said, "Because I'm half black, half white." And he was like, "Yeah."
That's
Back in the
hilarious,
day when you could say,
actually.
"Of course, what are you talking about?" You know, and that's
Mm,
what I did. I would play these or the arms a lot of times. If I wasn't an actual character, I would play the arms of characters that needed a right arm or a left arm, depending on which one
mm,
was the puppeting arm and stuff like that. And it was great to do it because you would go and maybe shoot a couple
mm.
each. I think we did it for like 3 or 4 weeks and we shot two at a time.
Okay.
And
Okay.
they were delightful when they came out. It was so different
Mm.
from what I'm used to the Muppets doing.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
really appreciated that creativity.
absolutely. Let me ask you this real quick too. Obviously, you're involved with Rumpelstiltskin and whatnot. Which of the six stories did you personally help work on, or is this across the board, all six of them?
I did something in all of them.
Okay. Okay.
But I have to say that anytime I got to be some sort of character were my favorites, of course, because I was more
Mm,
involved than an arm or a hand or something.
sure.
Uh, but working with them was always just wonderfully. I really liked Rumpelstiltskin because I think Gonzo is one of the more is a favorite. The Animal is another one. I love The Animal.
I had a
Mm.
funny you mentioned animal. I had this like stuffed animal as a kid, and I used to have his chain hanging from the ceiling. It was awesome.
He
It
is
would just
just he is
love
just
him.
a great character, and I've
Mhm.
loved him ever since I saw him and thought he was fabulous. And um, I don't know. The Hensons was Jim Henson and the Muppet Show were so avant-garde,
Mhm.
and to see that show got me very excited. And then they came and asked students if they would anybody who wanted to meet them on this lot, and we did the Rainbow Connection final sequence of Muppet movie. So we were all given a puppet and we held it up and sang Rainbow Connection, and it was incredible. We were just a bunch of, anyone who wants to come out in this area, we need some people to do a group scene. And you
Mhm.
got there, they said you're going to put a puppet on and sing Rainbow Connection, and we're like, for what? And then you realized it was for the Muppet movie. And then you see it and you go, I wonder if I can see myself, which you can't if you're doing it right. So,
That's beautiful. I can only imagine that.
but it was amazing. And to being able to work with Jim, the in between takes, people would interview
Mhm.
Jim because Muppet Mini Classics was such a diversion from what he had done before. And so he would have an interview and he'd go, okay, guys, go take 5. But the Muppet team, the original Muppeteers, were all Muppeteers, but the original guys
Mhm.
would then get behind the camera and try to make Jim laugh. And this, I guess, is something they always did. They
Okay.
always would do this to, if Frank was sitting in the limelight, Jim would be back there so it was all his fault.
Oh, I get what you're saying. Just to try to get
You
him to
see?
crack on camera, basically.
Yeah. So in other
Okay.
words, you're facing the camera, say
Mhm.
I'm the interviewer, but behind me is a bunch of people, doing silly, goofy stuff,
Yeah.
trying to distract you from what you're supposed to. Finally, Jim, because he was the boss, would go, get up, you guys stop it, you know, and the interviewer would go,
Mhm.
he'd
That's
look right
hilarious.
and say what, and they'd always do it. And the one who would not stop was Frank, because Frank was kind of the right hand of Jim.
Mhm.
They were buddies.
Yeah.
So Frank wouldn't stop, and so Jim would just have to, carry on. But it was a fascinating thing to watch.
Mhm.
And like I said, it's like watching a team of Bill Murrays just doing what they want to do behind, but this goofing off.
Yeah. That's
Jim would shake
incredible.
his head, but Jim started it. That's the thing. He really didn't have anyone he could yell at because he's the one that caused it in the first place.
Sure. Sure.
But all of that antics, that's kind of the fun thing about film when you're making a film and you're being a
Mhm.
filmmaker as well, is the stuff that happens off camera or around camera when you're shooting stuff like that. So Frank
Mm.
Oz used to tell us the way a puppeteer works, and forgive me if I'm talking to you like you're 5, but we have what's called a television monitor, and the monitor has a feed from the camera so that when we put the puppet in position, we can check to make sure they don't have a small dog following them,
Mhm.
which is usually the top of your head, or that your face or your eyes are in there, or anything, your puppet's crooked. You can adjust all of that naturally because you're looking at what the camera sees. And back then, it wasn't things like the phones we carry today or
Mhm.
the iPads we carry today. They were huge boxes with tubes and all kinds of things inside, known as a television monitor. And Frank used to scold us. He'd say, don't put your coffee or your soda or your water or whatever on top of a monitor.
Mhm.
Okay, because if we have an accident and everybody's like, oh, sorry, 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 because you didn't want to upset Frank or Jim, you wanted to keep your job. Oh, sorry, 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 sorry. And then one day we're performing Muppet Mini Classics. I think we're doing uh the elves, the shoemaker and the elves, and we're doing
Okay.
the sequence, right? We're playing these background characters. And all of a sudden we hear this and there's like lightning coming out of this monitor, and Frank and Jim looks up and says, "All right, who put the coffee or whatever this is? We just lost a monitor. You know, who did it?" And Frank went, "I'm sorry, it was me." And now all of us go,
Yeah,
you know,
Yeah, I bet so.
Yeah.
we know we didn't do it, but we're all like, "Uh-oh," you know,
Mhm. You want the
"Oh,
blame for it, yeah.
man." You know, so it
Man.
was things like that, you know, they just it's those little bits you have to watch a monitor and walk through a scene without your head being exposed. You have to monitors are set up in sequential or you know, there's
Mhm.
lots of them so that once you
Mhm.
leave one, you can spot another. And it's a real adaptability training. It's very, I often tell people if you ever get to go to a show where Muppeteers are working, be sure to watch below what the action's happening because that's more entertaining. I think way
Mm.
more entertaining. I mean, it's entertaining, but it's like everything's normal on top and total chaos below. And it's fun to watch the total chaos below, what it takes
Absolutely.
to do what you've got to do. Yeah.
Goodness, I love to hear it. I love to hear nice stories about Muppets, especially. Definitely warms my heart up. And you're right, like what happens behind the camera and around the camera is just as important to what goes on in front of it. Like some of my favorite moments of being on set of my own productions have been off camera stuff. Like my newest short film that we're releasing around the time this episode releases actually called Goonies and Agony. There's I couldn't tell you what scene it was. I forget off the top of my head, but at one point one of our actors, Nigel, who's I love him to death. He's been in all of my films so far, and he plays this bartender character in this film. And he's not aware we're filming. He's thinking the other guys are just going back and forth with lines, but he's mic'd currently. So all of a sudden, you just hear in the background and on the monitor system, you just hear him start singing High School Musical.
Oh my
Everyone
God.
breaks in with it. It's awesome. I love it so much. It's one of the most fun things in the world.
Well, in Dinosaurs, when you're ready to talk the TV show Dinosaurs, there were so many antics on that one that'll
Oh,
just blow you
Oh,
away.
I imagine on
It
I
Dinosaurs.
bet
happened off
so. Yeah.
camera, and I was Team Baby Sinclair on that one, and being a part of Baby was amazing. Just
Mhm.
an amazing opportunity to work with that team. But yeah, the antics on the sidelines and in the background, and some of the things that, no offense, directors do that you say, I hope this guy is seeking help afterwards. You just don't know. I mean, some of the things that you're asked to do and stuff. And then if you're doing your job right, you make it look so easy that people are like, why can't you keep your arm in the air for an hour? You know? Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. It's a brilliant, it's a schizophrenic world because
Mhm.
puppeteers believe the characters to be real and you talk to them. You know, you talk right to your puppet character. I had since Lamb Chop.
Mhm.
And Lamb Chop would counsel me and remember what your father said, lead with tolerance. You know, okay, all right, I'll remember. You know, so it was wild to be with Jim and Frank, and Jim and Frank would go into Sam the Eagle at certain times. You know, he would, if he was going to tell you something that was very important,
Mhm.
he'd name Sam the Eagle.
Oh, that's funny. That's so funny. I love
Remember, kiddies, you know.
it. That's wonderful. Real quick, Terry, I do want to ask you this, kind of touching back to Muppet Classic Theater again. Out of the six stories, obviously you're a bit biased because you've worked on this project. When you're looking back on it, which of the six is your favorite? Like, what is such a heartwarming one for you? Like, what do you look back on the most fond with?
Heartwarming one is the Shoemaker and the Elves. I really
Okay.
like that one. I didn't do a lot in it, but it was and again, it's the stuff that surrounded it. It was a not an easy one for us to film. There were a lot of people that had to do complicated crosses and things because we had a lot of characters.
Hmm.
Um, but it's when I met Jerry Nelson and fell absolutely in love with Jerry Nelson as a human being. I thought, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing. One of those brilliant puppeteers that doesn't necessarily tell you how brilliant they are. or
Hmm.
make sure you know, but he just is. And it's also where I learned to play the game Hearts.
Okay.
So, because you have a lot of downtime as a performer,
Hmm.
and if
Mhm.
your background, you have a lot of downtime, and then you have those big scenes where you all got to be on point, but they want you out. They don't want you watching. So they go, okay, get up to the green room, a room where we're housed, because housing puppeteers near where you have to shoot is a bad idea. It's just
Okay.
we're noisy. We're like kids. We're like these little polar bear kids in Brave. The three little kids in
Hmm.
Brave? We're like
Mhm.
those little bears. So puppeteers are like that. We're into mischief. We cause problems. We're gremlins or whatever you want to think about it. We're these little people that don't, we're these people that just don't, we live under the floor. So of course we're a little nuts.
Hmm.
So he would banish us to the green room, and they asked if I wanted to play cards, and they taught me hearts. And just being able to say I'm playing hearts with, you know, Jerry Nelson and Steve Whitmire and my other colleagues who were part of the background was
Hmm.
really, it's those moments where you sit back and I'm in this room having a fill in the blank, and you got to pinch yourself because you dreamed of being a part of this team at one point, and now you are. So, and each casting, we were never like the Muppet Dream Team, where you
Hmm.
were, it's kind of, you are, when you're hired, you're always going to play Gonzo, you're always going to play Rizzo if you're that character. Miss Piggy's always going to be, until Disney, of course. And then, but because of that, we didn't know if we were going to have a next time, but we sure hope we did. We knew that they liked us because we had come back and done other things as well. But every time you did it, you said, man, I really like this environment that we're in, and it just feels like a good group of folks. So yeah, it's that, and that's why it was my favorite, again, because of the relationships you had off as well as on. So you get in, you do your character, you cross from A to Z, or you sing a little song, or you pick up something and
Hmm.
move. You've got to do it without disrupting the story.
Sure.
So you have to be able to, where am I going to put this when my little character has to squeeze in the background and not pull focus or anything? It's an ability. It definitely is.
Love it, man. Ah, love it. And the Elvis one is so good too. A great pick. Great pick.
That's a good one. Yeah.
I think my favorite one off the top of my head would be Emperor's New Clothes. I'm a big Fozzie fan. Like I've talked about this when we had Greg Berg on a few months ago to talk about Muppets Babies, like I said. And Fozzie is just my favorite Muppet. Love him. I adore Frank's performance as him. And for whatever reason, like this project always stands out because it's like so Fozzie-less. But once we get to Fozzie, it's top notch Fozzie, which I love. Thankfully, it's still
And
Frank.
Frank's favorite character. Frank's favorite character. I
Hmm.
don't know if he ever said that to me, but when he was in Fozzie, he just cut loose.
Yeah.
There was always a little bit of discipline in the other characters, not Fozzie.
Mm.
He would just he would just be he would just cut loose, wah! And you knew you were gonna get craziness. And Emperor's New Clothes I thought was brilliant because it's just so Fozzie.
Hmm.
If there's going to be someone walking around without their clothes, you know it's going to be Fozzie.
Exactly. I love it. I
Yep.
love it. Brian, what about you? What is your favorite of these six stories in Muppet Classic Theater?
My favorite probably is the King Midas one, and I really like that one because you get the kind of classic dynamic there between Kermit and Miss Piggy. They're playing, the king and queen of this realm there. I really like that, and you get some good Gonzo action in that. He's
Hmm.
brought in to play the satyr there who grants the wish to King Midas to make him turn everything into gold. I like the little gold Kermit statue as well. Whoever designed that, that was awesome. But what I really like about it is because you have, like you mentioned, Max, you have Gonzo and Rizzo are kind of narrating this, so it's similar to, like Muppet Christmas Carol, in that stance. But
Yeah,
it
that
has
too.
like this feeling of this community theater thing because they're there, and Gonzo, turns to Rizzo and he's like, "Oh, I'm in this one. You have to take over for me." And in that sense, it felt very like small and communal and community theater like.
Mhm.
which I imagine, and
Mm-hmm.
the way you're talking about it, Terry, it sounds like that was, kind of Jim's thing and idea. It was like this small, like local, like I don't know, like theater troupe almost that just kind of took over, the whole world and their imaginations. So it felt very much like it was kind of in the wheelhouse of what they really set out to achieve in the world, and I really loved that stuff. Terry, you've mentioned being like down underneath and trying to stay hidden. Like in all of these performances, you're having, I don't know, like 50 Muppets on set at a time doing the songs and stuff. So I imagine it got very crowded
Oh
in
yeah.
there.
In the fact that I did Baby Sinclair with Kevin Clash,
Mm-hmm.
who has been known for a lot of great characters, mainly Elmo.
Mm-hmm.
Um, TV Guide came to interview us. I think it was TV Guide. And they asked, Kevin, what's it like to do the voice? And then they asked John, we hear you're a protege of Kevin Clash. And then me, I said, well, I've got a very understanding husband because I come home smelling like Kevin. Because you can't put paper between us. And they were all like, and guess which comment they used? Just because that was the absolute truth. You're under the floor and you are physically attached to the person when you are doing a character that involves arms and legs and full body. Um, so that's what I said that I come home smelling like him. He always wore cologne. So there was just no need for me to wear it because there we were under the floor.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, yeah, you're very, very close. And then I did a show called Oral Roberts Celebration, in which I played a couple of characters. But the thing that was that most people talked about was the fact that I was the arms for Grandma. And
Mm-hmm.
Grandma sat on the couch and I was in the couch and I knitted. She knitted. But just for a moment, if you knit or you crochet, you knit here. I
Mm-hmm.
knit above my head watching a television monitor. And because Grandma was knitting, not Terry was knitting, and she made a scarf and I mean, people were they would buy into that character,
Mm-hmm.
then probably turn the TV off and going, wait a minute. So how did that, you know, knit? I mean, it's crazy stuff like that if you go back and you watch uh the Muppet Show,
Mm-hmm.
you start to ask, how did they get these are foam characters and puppet creativity, because everything is, our arms, we're usually underneath
Mm-hmm.
characters that we are portraying or behind. But you ask yourselves the question, so any of those things that occurred, because we had some digital, but we didn't have a lot of digital. And so it was all camera technique and sheer strength and will uh, again, like you said, Brian, a community feel. We're all there to help each other, whatever they needed. If you need us to help you take away something so that it
Mm-hmm.
replaces with something else or whatever, then we're there to do it. It's a joyful 99.9% of the time. It's a joyful time. But Jim would have told you, and Frank as well, that we are such a goofy troop of people that sometimes it's like herding cats. Come on, guys, we got to focus.
That's hilarious. I love it. Gosh, I'm really happy we had this chance to kind of go over this like underrated, like kind of almost, I don't want to call it forgotten about, but it's like this whole pocket of Muppets. Like I said, that
Yeah.
is kind of like just sitting here for Kermit Swamp years, Muppets Wizard of Oz, of course, too, like I mentioned too. But I'm glad we had a chance to talk to some Muppet classic theater, especially with you who have such a dying love for this series, for these characters, and had such a great involvement with it as well. It's been
Yeah,
awesome.
and you might be able to find the DVD at Be Kind Video in Burbank, which is all VHS and DVD and laser discs. So you might be able to even find it if you're but uh, you know, see if it's streaming anywhere. I don't know.
It needs to be. I really wish Disney would invest in adding some of the forgotten stuff on the streaming. for
Well,
Muppets,
I'll tell you,
especially.
they put dinosaurs up, and I thought that was buried. I thought that was buried. I
Real,
really thought
oh,
that was. I mean, the DVDs were out for dinosaurs, but I really didn't expect. And
hmm
then the pandemic came along, and they said, "Oh, by the way, we're gonna put all 4 seasons, all 5 seasons of dinosaurs up," and everyone started writing and saying, "Do you realize dinosaurs is on Disney again?" And I was like, "What?" I said, "What? Thank you." I
That's
mean, I'm
awesome.
tickled to see young kids come up and say they really enjoy that show. So you're right. I
Oh
think
yeah.
pull the mini classics back up, put it
Yeah.
Absolutely.
there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I was 10 years old, I think, when dinosaurs came on there. So I was the perfect target audience for that for sure.
That show
Yeah.
was amazing too. That was an amazing experience because pilots, you always watch pilots, and pilots are the most difficult thing to make if you're doing a series. It's this people are finding their feet, puppeteers are trying to figure out what they're going to do, you're trying to figure out what are the iconic characters and everything. And Michael Jacobs, the producer, said, "Well, what I really think should happen is giant dinosaurs should come in and eat the females." Because he did not like the female characters in the first show,
hmm
so they didn't know what they were going to do to save it, and they did a clip show because the people that the people that wrote in the focus groups said they liked Earl and the Baby. So that's what they ended up doing is Earl and the Baby do the first show, which is a clip show and talks about, what you're going to see in dinosaurs, so much to see. So the nice thing about, and Jim wasn't around at that time. We had lost him. But the nice thing about uh the Henson Company, and I'd love to see it more now, and Disney as well, is they were creatives,
hmm
and they would just say, how do we make this work, instead of not asking anybody, not just kind of thinking they know what they want to give people. And all they have to do is ask the fans, and their half their work is done.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished. Ask, what do you want from Star Wars? What do you want from, we got lucky with Favreau, but the last Mandalorian, what was it, third season, I
hmm
just kept feeling that he's let Disney in a bit too much. So my advice to Favreau is to lock them out and tell them you're not opening the door until you finish season 4, and then make it the way you want, because you are tapped into what we want to see,
hmm
as shown in Mandalorian 1. So, and we are hanging on that, because some of these other things that Disney has come up with are awful. And it's like
Yeah.
one terrible thing after another terrible thing, and you're like, you're destroying characters that it's not the character's fault.
hmm
Character could really be good if you would just write something fun for them to do instead of trying to hang on. You
Yeah.
Um, I love the original 3 films, but you don't need to resurrect dead bodies anymore. The Star Wars universe is fun because it's the Star Wars universe.
Exactly. And that's something
Make
we've
it a
always discussed
universe.
on the show too.
Yeah.
How studio and involvement, interference, of course, and whatnot. But I think what we need instead, and instead of focusing on Star Wars, we need a revival. We need a comeback of one Captain EO for sure.
Oh yeah.
We do need that.
Oh,
Which of course leads us to our next film for this week. But guys, before we start discussing Captain EO, we're gonna go ahead and take a quick little break and go over our stream of the week brought to you by Tyler this week. And when we come back, we'll be joined by none other than the autograph king himself, Shamim Dana. So we'll be right back, guys.
Oh, hi, Mark. What's up? Tyler with Galaxy of Film back with another stream of the week. And last week I just watched Rise of the Planet of the Apes. The concept of this movie was pretty damn interesting when it first came out in theaters, but I never got to see it until very recently, and the concept is my favorite thing. Just intelligent apes taking over humanity and then just disappearing into the woods to live their lives. I don't know what resonates with me about that, but it's pretty darn cool, and the motion capture is top notch. I saw the Coldplay music video before this, and the technology difference is huge. You would think that these are real apes actors. It's available on Disney Plus as well as the sequel to that and a third installment, both of which I plan to be watching soon because ape shit cool.
Do you want to talk about it?
I don't think anyone ever really wants to talk about it.
I just wanted to come home so I can fix things.
You want to talk about being alone, huh? He's had it pretty rough too, apparently.
How do you fix things, man? I mean, you're the one who's fucked it all up.
You gonna order another drink or not?
I'll take another. How am I supposed to get up from rock bottom?
The way I see it, it's not too late. No matter how much it hurts, keep moving.
All right, guys, and we're back from our break. And I want to go ahead and take a second to go ahead and reintroduce the man himself, Shamim, the autograph king, our director of fan relations here at Galaxy of Film. How's it going, bro?
Good.
Well, what's new in your life, man? Catch us up a little bit on Shamim. What's going on?
Okay, so I've been promising Nicholas out with some of his concerts. His new album comes out May 17th. We're gonna be okay. He just did a signing with Blockbuster, and that turned out really well. Thomas came. He was like overwhelmed with all the Blockbuster stuff and nostalgia stuff, so he came. He did a mini concert. He did a signing. I helped with the signing. He saw about, I would say, it was about like, I brought 10 of my friends and my family, and then there was about like 20 to 30 people that was seeing Thomas and seeing Rookie of the Year on the in Blockbuster for the first time on the screen. He actually never did a signing with Blockbuster before, so now he did. And then now Thomas has just dropped his new music video called Tomorrow's Gonna Hurt. Just dropped like today. That's out. And then he's gonna be going to he's on his big tour, part 1. There's gonna be a part 2, and then he's gonna be doing my birthday concert, which he's supporting Punk Rock Factory, a band in UK. They're playing on my birthday. And then he's doing the Hollywood show June 7th and 8th. Terry, if you're around, you can come. And my birthday concert is at T. Graham Ballroom in LA. And you're welcome to come to that, Terry, if you're around. And so that's about what's up in my documentary. Scott is still in the editing phase. He's got like 80% done.
Okay,
The
good
film
progress.
the film will be most likely done sometime next year, and on February 25th of this year. So the wedding is September 12th of 2026, Terry. So you can put that in your future calendar.
Okay.
So that's what's in my life now. And then Adrian just met his first celebrity, which was Thomas Ian Nicholas.
Nice.
And he still remembers him. That's good. And Thomas is actually going to be promoting his we're going to be young tour. We're gonna be okay tour. That starts in Germany again, and then that's where the thing is from there back. So that's up.
Okay, nice, man. Nice. Glad to see you got some good stuff going on here, staying positive, keeping things moving in the world. We're here for it. And speaking of positivity, man, we do have quite positive, possibly the most positive short film of all time is what we're discussing next in our list for this week. We have none other than Captain EO, starring Michael Jackson, written by George
Yes.
Lucas and directed by Francis Ford Coppola. And yeah, this thing is insane.
Okay.
The fact that this even exists, in my opinion. This was like a Disney Parks exclusive film, basically. In the 80s, it came out in 86 originally, and then in the 2010s, it kind of came back randomly. I got a chance to see this in 2013, and I watched it, I think, like 4 or 5 times back to back. Just keep going in line for it. I fell in love with
Wow.
Captain EO. Brian, when was the first time you watched Captain EO?
So I had seen it the first time just watching like an online cut of it. I think when it like I think in like the mid 90s they'd played it on MTV at some point. And I think I found like a copy of that online, and that was the first time that I'd ever seen it. I'd
Okay.
actually I'd actually been to Disney World just once as a kid, and that would have been I think in 1988 or 89 if memory serves, but I don't recall seeing Captain EO when I went
Okay.
there. So it really wasn't something I was very familiar with. Now Max is, Galaxy of Film, and myself, running a lot of like Star Wars circles on Instagram and things. So Captain EO conversation pops up from time to time, because of George Lucas's involvement with it, and obviously, kind of the Disney connection and that there with Lucasfilm. So it's kind of been like on and off of the radar, but yeah, I first saw it, I don't know, maybe about 10 years ago, some like online cut of it, and then I'll watch it every once in a while just
Mm,
for just some I don't know, walk down memory lane kind of thing. But that was my introduction to it, and now I'm bummed because I totally could have seen it when I
yeah.
was at Epcot, but I didn't, or maybe I did, and I just don't remember. I do remember Figment. Figment must have left a better impression on 8-year-old me than Captain EO did. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, seen it a couple of times now.
I gotcha. I gotcha. And Shamim, when it comes to Captain EO, when was the first time you had a chance to watch this as well?
Well, I first saw Captain EO when I got the giant oversized comic book that they came out with in the 86,
Okay.
and then I got that from a used bookstore. My friend Bill had it,
Hmm.
and then he gave it to me, and then I had that, and then in 2010 I got to see Captain EO when it was playing at the Space Mountain, I believe, right, Terry, in Disneyland, or where would it have been? Space Mountain?
Yep, you're right.
At the
Okay, so that's cool. They had it at Epcot at Disney World around that time. So it's interesting. Space Mountain. Okay.
Yeah, so it was, I believe it started in the revamp of it started, and as a tribute, that's how I saw like went on that ride twice. The
Mhm.
experience was pretty fun
Yeah,
from
I agree on that, man.
from what I remembered.
I agree. You
And
saw it twice. I saw it, like I said, 4 or 5 times back to back. Why not? It's short. It's fun. It's Michael Jackson too, which is crazy. um. So no, I feel you, man. I feel you. And now, Terry, obviously you're in Captain EO. You helped to work on this film, which is really awesome.
Yes.
And so a little bit of a recap for this. There's not too much of a background, which I guess is more of a better thing because it is a short film, like I said. But Captain EO and his space crew of like random like alien musician misfits are all kind of just hanging out. They're on a mission to go ahead and save the world from this evil queen that's not really explained on this planet. But it's a pretty cool sequence because while they almost in like a Jabba's palace kind of sense where Luke has this whole grand plan, this grand scheme to kind of take over, get his gang back from Jabba and his palace, and he kind of sacrifices R2 and 3PO right away. He offers them as a gift to him. Captain EO almost does the same, like negotiating at first. He's trying to level out, he's trying to calm things down. Hey guys, we're here. And things kind of go awry at that point. They take a turn, and he has to defeat the evil queen with song. And it's ridiculous. We get this cool like transformer bit with like one of the guys turning into a piano. Like it's awesome. It makes no sense, but I love it. I absolutely love it. And there's like this Max Rebo looking character, which if you've been a fan of Galaxy of Film, you are no secret or no stranger to knowing that Brian and I both love Max Rebo to death. He's incredible and one of the greatest characters in all of the franchise.
Yeah.
So to see his cousin,
His cousin's in it, playing the piano. Yeah.
yeah, I love it, man. I just love it. And then we get an actual Michael Jackson song at the end of it when he kind of saves the day. Yeah,
That's right.
this
And
thing.
don't forget, Angelica Houston is also in it. The same year she won the Oscar, 1986. So that was quite the get too. That was, yeah, yeah. You talk about Michael Jackson and Coppola and Lucas, but yeah, Angelica Houston, Academy Award winner that same year, also in this.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's I cannot believe this thing exists, but I love it so much for it. My friends who Caleb and Drake have been on the podcast, they're my PAs, are always in our stuff. They had never heard of this. When I was showing this on for them, they're like, "You're telling me that technically Michael Jackson is in Star Wars, just hanging out somewhere in this?" Now with Ahsoka being a thing, dude, if we don't see Ahsoka pass by Michael Jackson's ship in this new galaxy, I'll be disappointed. That's all I'm gonna say. But Terry, obviously you were worked on Captain EO. How did you get involved in such a unique project? Like, what was that like for? What was this pitch? I know Muppet Classic Theater was different. This had to be a whole other ballpark, wasn't it?
It was completely different. Before that, I'm trying to think because it's been a while, but at some point before, I think I had just finished Ghostbusters and was working on a project. Was working on a project for Worlds of Wonder, the toy maker, Teddy Ruxpin,
Okay.
which was a little
And
bear cassette that went into his back and told you stories. So I was working on the creation of some of the characters that were involved in that. And I came home after a long day, and on my answering machine was a message that said, could you call me right away? We have a new project. In those days, and this is the beauty of these days, is that we were practical. Everything had to be built, everything had to be made, everything was real. It wasn't computer generated. There were some computer generated things, but they weren't as elegant as today. And a lot of stuff ended up being like stop motion and claymation and wild stuff. So it was wonderful because all walks of life came together to make something like Captain EO a reality. And I said, you told me to call you back, and they said, how would you like to work with Michael Jackson? And I said, oh, my mom would like that. And they were like, okay. And and what about George Lucas? I said, well, the pot's getting better. And they said, finally, Francis Ford Coppola. And I said, I would work for free. Coppola was my favorite director. Godfather was one of my favorite series of films. Besides Star Wars, we all have more taste than just that. Good, the Bad, the Ugly is one of my favorite westerns. And Godfather is such a great, amazing series of film work that I was a big fan. I said, oh, I'd love to, So they said, well, come down tomorrow. And we were shot in Culver City. And they actually hired me to do the Whip Warriors.
Okay.
So they knew that I had done the original Dune, 1984, and they saw that in my portfolio, and they were like, we think you'd be great to build these Whip Warriors. And I said, okay, I'd be happy to do that, So I was there starting to lay out the area. We had the music box guys we had to build, and we had several other things that we had to build for the characters. And when I went home, I had on my answering machine, they said, Terry, we're looking for puppeteers for Captain EO. Could you give us a call back? So I called and left a message. The next day when I came home, they said, if you don't, at least give us the courtesy of responding to our message. My message said, I'm on stage 11. You're on stage 5. I'm on stage 11. Just go out your door, turn left, and walk over and talk to me. And for the second day in a row, they were starting to get a little antsy. So I took a break and ran up to the production office and said, I'm Terri Hardin. I'm the puppeteer you're looking for. I'm working there right now, building, but I would like to audition for the characters. And the way that I got Heidi and Odie, the two-headed bird characters, which were the characters that I played, and I'll explain that in a minute, was because I could lift, hold, and maintain that two-headed bird character. The body had
Oh.
weight,
Oh.
but each head was 15 pounds. So I had 30 pounds of heads in my arms to start with, and many puppeteers are used to the puppeteers that were coming through to audition were college shows, were kids shows, because again, puppeteers were something that people were trying to figure out, where do you find them if you don't have someone like Jim. And even Jim's characters are very, very light. So to lift these, I had my training on Ghostbusters. So having to lift and articulate the dogs in Ghostbusters and puppeteer the face for the Marshmallow Man and build the Marshmallow Man, that's where they were, okay, this is, you can lift these, and so finally they said, are you willing to play this character? I said, absolutely. Now, the way it worked is that they had a walking set of characters and a close-up set of characters. So Idie and Odie were a three-legged, two-headed bird character played by Debbie Carrington was one of them, and Cindy Griffo was the other one, two little people ladies who were tied together like a three-legged race inside the suit, and they played anytime you see them walking. And a major sequence in Captain EO where they're walking is when after the ship crashes, they're walking around. But most of the time, and they kept telling me, we're going to use the full figures as much as we can, but they couldn't, because the girls were not able to articulate the heads, or it hadn't been designed that way. So I did most of the puppeteering. They did the walk around stuff, and I did a lot of the close-up stuff, or anytime the bottom half was hidden behind like the drum set.
Sure.
Okay.
I also did the push the red button sequence, because the woman who was puppeteering Hooter couldn't lift the character. They hadn't thought to do like a trunk and a face. They did the upper half of the body. And so in order to hit the red button to pull in the sails, you had to lift the entire character and simultaneously make it look like he's pushing the button. That's well. And Tony was the opposite. Tony Cox was this amazing performer inside the suit. He got so much out of it that they felt they didn't really need the puppeteer, except for to button up certain areas that maybe Tony couldn't do simply because of the restrictions of the suit he was wearing. But most of the stuff he could do. So most of it is all Tony himself.
Okay.
Character. Yeah. So I got it because I could lift it and perform it. And to be a part of it was amazing. It was amazing. It was amazing. The table read, I was nervous. My heart was beating like a rabbit because I didn't want to go all fangirl on Francis Ford Coppola. I didn't want to faint when meeting Francis Ford Coppola. I wanted to speak like an intelligent person with Francis Ford Coppola, because this guy was someone bigger than life for me.
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah.
Especially, and so let me ask you this too, like, is there a specific memory in mind when you think back of Captain EO with Michael Jackson specifically? Like, did you have any, like, yeah?
Well, let me give you a smorgasbord. You pick the story. When I chased him around with a bullwhip, when I sat with him and had lunch and asked him his 3 wishes.
Okay.
When I had great fights with him in his trailer.
Okay.
When Francis Ford Coppola had us do improvisation theater, which he does with all of his casts.
Okay.
Let us know. When we had the table reading and he sat next to me. So yes, we were very much a part of each other's lives. Michael seemed to be grateful after he got to know me, but really didn't know what to think of me when he first met me.
Okay, so do me a favor then. Okay, that's a great smorgasbord, but like, tell me your first time meeting Michael then. What was that like?
First thing meeting Michael. Okay, so there's a table read. A table read, as many of you know, is the first time the cast is introduced. The whole team comes together, and those who have parts speak, read the script, etc. Those who don't kind of listen, make notes. We were the puppeteers, So we were told that the suit performers were going to do most of the reading.
Mm-hmm.
But they had us sit in because we were the body part.
Can you stop
Makes
whatever you're
sense.
doing? Just
So Michael was late. And the first group that, and I walk in the door and a man greets me and says, "Hi, I'm Francis." I say, "Hi, I'm Terry." He walks away and I went, "Francis Ford Coppola." But luckily I did that after he was
Okay. Okay. Not showing
in
face
his
too much, at least.
cute Bermuda shorts and his walk and everything. And so he went and sat at the head of the table and he sat us all down. And in walked Michael Jackson, and you could tell it was Michael Jackson, besides being Michael Jackson, but an entourage of about 40 people.
Mm-hmm.
Michael's people, we will call them hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil. He had 3 particular fellows who seemed to be specifically there for Michael himself. The rest were Disney people.
Okay.
Nervous because they were sure, I don't know why they were nervous, but they were nervous. And they all sat along the wall. Francis said, "You guys need to be over there, as far away from the table read as possible. Just sit yourselves over there." And the only chair remaining was the one next to me, so Michael took it. And Michael asked Francis, he said, "I'm sorry I'm late." And Francis said, "That's okay, Michael. We're gonna start the table read. You all set?" He said, "Yes. Do you mind if I record it?" And Francis says, yeah, go ahead, record it." Guy number 1, hear no evil, runs over, whoosh, puts down a tape recorder, hits play, and disappears.
Okay.
I look at Michael and go, "What the heck was that?" And Michael looks at me and goes, and Francis goes, "Let's go." And so they start to read, the whole thing. It goes through. And before you know it, Michael is supposed to have the next line, and something has gone wrong. Everybody's waiting, and I'm kind of following along, and I look up, and the pages are all disheveled, and Michael is just trying to find his place in the pages. Guy number 2, see no evil, runs up and grabs the pages and organizes the pages for Michael, sets them in front of him, and is gone. And I go, "What the heck?" And Michael looks at me and says, "Are we ready? Can we continue?" "Yes, I'm sorry. Yes." And so then he starts to do it again, and he said, "We bring for you this hard guy in juice gone." And I go, "That's it." And Michael goes, "What?" And I go, what? How'd you get that juice?" And he says, I said, "Don't tell me. Don't tell me how you got that juice. I'm just going to try it. Wait, I'm going to try it." "All right, buddy, where's my juice?" And he looks at me and he says, "You're funny."
That's ridiculous.
It's your introduction to Michael, or Michael's introduction to you. You be the judge.
I love that. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it was crazy. And from then on, he said, he didn't know what to think of me at first.
Mhm.
And then I became one of his favorite people because, remember, earlier in the show, I told you that I'm someone who's, well, I don't even know if we were on camera, but on podcast, but I mentioned that I'm gullible. So Michael discovered that really quickly. And I don't know if you've ever had the pleasure of someone comes up to you when you were a kid and says, "Oh, I just sent away for rattlesnake eggs." Have you heard this one? "I sent
No.
away for rattlesnake eggs." What it is it's a rubber band twisted around bobby pins. You may not know what bobby pins are, but anyway, around bobby pins, so that it's a tight little sort of propeller thing. You put it in the envelope,
Mhm.
and and you want to see, and you open it up and it goes, and you go, because it makes kind of a rattly sound.
Yeah.
Did that to me about every day. Now, the first day I got really scared. The rest of the days I had to pretend I was getting really scared because he would just go away giggling. He thought it was the funnest thing. Got her again. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Ay, ay, ay. You know. So yeah, just I became his come in and have grape. He had grapes flown in so that we'd have grape fights in his trailer before we started the day.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
just being a part of someone that was so joyful and young was really fun. You may or may not know that originally, in 1985, it was an 86. We shot it in 85. Was the heyday for Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
He was on top of the world, King Midas, as we spoke of before, if you want.
Mhm.
Nothing he touched didn't turn to gold, and um they decided to have a love interest for him, as they did in like Thriller
Mhm.
and Billie Jean. And so they did this casting session for his love interest. It took 2 weeks, another week to make her outfits or get her outfits ready to be the princess, because originally the queen was going to turn into this beautiful princess, and they were going to have a look between them and hearts and all this kind
Mhm.
of fun stuff. But Angelica wouldn't have it. She read the script and said, "Oh, no, 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 no. Wait. What is it, Angelica? I am going to be the princess." And all of the Disney people went, I mean, 40 people going, "Oh, no."
Mhm.
And she says, "I will not just play the queen. I will play both, or I won't play either." Everybody,
Okay.
all the Disney people all freak out. And Francis Ford Coppola says, "Well, we'll let you play the queen, dear. You're a little old to be the princess." And she went, "Queen then." Okay. But that's how Angelica became
Mhm.
queen. We let go of this young girl, all of the work that had been done on her costumes and everything out the door,
Mhm.
because I think Francis wanted her to go. He didn't like that strong arming, but as you have mentioned, she was up for an Academy Award for Percy's Honor. She was also Houston, so a huge draw, Angelica Houston. Also, she was up for an Academy Award, and Disney was going, "No, no, give her what she wants, 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 please, please."
I imagine.
And all done in a corner. And then they came back, and he said, "Okay, you can be the queen." So she became the queen at the end. She flew in her designer.
Mhm.
That outfit came from a designer who was used to designing for her, and she became the queen. So that was our first, all of our, including Michael's, introduction to Angelica. I remember thinking, she's perfect for the witch. she's she's tough. And so it was amazing shooting the show. The whole thing was amazing.
Mhm.
How did Captain EO come to be? "I want," says Disney, "Michael Jackson in something, and I want it to be 3D so that
Mhm.
everyone can experience it." This is what we believe Disney said when it was just blue sky, as Imagineers call it.
Yeah, yeah.
"We're going to blue sky." And the problem was it couldn't be a big thing because 20 minutes is all you can go with a 70 millimeter 3D film, which lays on a tray and
Mhm.
goes like this, as opposed to like this. Film, not digital.
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course.
So the film, big film, but because it's a big film, it's heavy film. It does not go through a projector like a normal film. It has to lay on a tray and spin on a table.
Mhm.
18 minutes is all they've got of shootable footage. So this is how they said, well, let's come up with some sort of attraction story so that people can experience it, and we can add the thumps that make your seat bounce up, and the sound, and the music. Will have all of it come to life, so to speak. And this is what they said: this is going to be a 3D film. It's going to be about Captain EO going to find the beacon and give the gift. That was the whole premise of it. You had this ragtag bunch of characters, cute little ship flying about. You wanted to have the adorable fuzzball. So, you know, this is how they did it. They just said, we're just going to bring these fun. Hooter, who was, I think, something that, because Tony Cox was so gregarious, he actually kind of stole from Fuzzball a little bit, because he was just so good at what he did. And I remember Tony, who's all of about 3 feet tall, if that, drove at the time, drove a caddy, a huge Cadillac. And he'd open the door and show me how it worked. He said, see, I just had the pedals all made so that because I wanted a big car.
Oh my gosh.
And as you know, Tony is an amazing actor. He told me about a movie called I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker, where he plays a pimp, and you see this long stretch limo come, and the door opens, and he's standing on the other side. He's not seated like you expect. He's standing there. So he takes great joy in the body that he's in, and he's just a love. But yeah, so Angelica was this strong, very strong-willed person, and yeah, so the table read was an e-ticket adventure. I will say that, meaning that it was one of the best Disney rides, and it really wasn't the ride yet.
It sounds absolutely like wonderful. I bet you don't have a single other story like that. You know, Michael Jackson especially. That's so cool. That is so neat. It's a little bit of a tangent real quick, and we'll move on back to Cat Neo. But I always find stories of Michael Jackson be so fascinating. Whenever the new documentary or the new biopic comes out, we'll talk about it. We'll do This Is It with it too, of course, on the podcast. But like, Michael Jackson, for me, the day I discovered who Michael Jackson was the day he died. I remember seeing all the stuff on the news. I was like 9 years old, you know. I remember seeing it live on the news, all the reportings about him passing away. So like hearing any story involving him, and I went on a deep dive on him afterwards too. As like a 10-year-old, I had different records, CDs of him. I had 2 different posters lined up. I still have one of the T-shirts of like a young Michael Jackson with an afro that I used to wear to school. I fell in love with his music, and like being able to hear personal stories like this involving was just the coolest thing to me. You know, I imagine that's how my mom probably felt about like Elvis and whatnot. You know, because that's always just like a kind of a touch away just from that too. So.
Well, he's an extremely generous soul. He's a very tender soul. Someone who at 4 became a pop icon. And so his whole life was sheltered and isolated from people. One time, there were fans at the gate of the studios we were at, and they would always press against the gate to try and get in to see him as he walked to his trailer. And one day they broke through.
Okay.
And they jumped him. So it was not I remember seeing it and just could barely move because I was in such shock. But they began tearing at him. Like if they had a piece of him, they could be a part of him. If they had a part of him, they would be closer to him. He started to try and cut his hair and try to cut his clothes. And Stevie Wonder had loaned Michael his bodyguard named Chucky, this massive man that was about 6'7" or so. And I was off to the side talking to Chucky when they broke through. Michael was walking, hey, Michael, you know, and then the next thing we know, he's under the swarm of people, and he's just, you know, I don't care who you are. This is unflipping comfortable.
Yeah.
It is not fun to have hundreds. I don't care how big a fan how big of a rock star you want to be. Nobody wants people's hands grabbing at you as like you're something to eat. Nobody wants to be a piece of meat. Nobody.
You're not a Black Friday item, you know. You're just not like the last TV at Walmart.
And I was freaking out. I was like, oh my God. And Chucky said, let me show you how to do my job. And he walked into that crowd and he started picking people off like people would pick leeches. And he walked through the crowd and just, no, that's not polite. Get back. Who are you? Where were you born? What's the matter with you? As he pulled through, grabbed and sheltered Michael and pulled him away and said, get on back there. You know, and then he brought Michael over, and Michael was completely rattled. I mean, this is, I thought, oh my, it was my introduction to just what his life must have been like.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've seen the videos. I mean,
Mhm.
just the crowds outside of his hotel rooms, insanity.
It's scary. It was just, I said, oh, Michael, dear Lord, I had no idea. I thought people would admire you, but I also thought they would be human and be respectful, and they were not.
Hmm.
He also, uh, I used to have lunch on the set of Captain EO, which is a hot set, meaning you shouldn't be on it. But I had been on there, and I wanted, because there was so much going on, my hour, I wanted to have quiet time. So I would grab my lunch and I would go on the set. I'd sit on the steps of the Captain EO set and I'd have my lunch. Well, one day I went in and I heard movement. And I said, who's there? And he's like, Terry? I said, Michael? Yeah. I said, what are you doing? He says, I'm working on the music. Forgive me. That's my
Oh, you're good.
alarm for the next interview. So rude. What's Carol just thinks she's so all that, so narcissistic. But anyway, so long story short, I said I was gonna have my lunch in here. Am I interrupting you? He said, no, 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 come on. So we sat on the steps and we're eating lunch, and I said, Michael, I have got a burning question I gotta ask you. And he says, okay. And I said,
Mhm.
if you don't want to answer it, just tell me no. And he said, no, 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 I'll answer it. So I said, if I were a good fairy, or I was a genie and I came down to earth and I looked at you and I said, Michael Jackson, in all the world, in all the universe, there is no place where you're not known. I believe that if there are moonmen on the moon and you landed there, the moonman would go, Michael Jackson, autograph. So I said, as a person, if I could grant you 3 wishes, what would they be? And he said, oh my, nobody's ever asked me that before. I said, too much? No. I said, then call me nobody because I'm asking. And he sat and he thought for a moment. And then he said, the first wish would have his childhood back. At age 4, he was put in an ironclad protection because he was a award-winning multi-million-dollar star at such a young age. Don't climb a tree, you might break something. Don't do this, so on and so forth. His second wish was to go to a mall and not buy it first. So he couldn't go to a mall. So he would have to buy them all in order to shop. And his third wish was to walk among people and not be noticed. Now, his third wish was granted by the amazing Rick Baker, who did the cantina scene, among other amazing things in the makeup industry. And Rick made him a white Jewish old man. And then he walked along the beach and purposely bumped into people. And he said the favorite thing about that was they would go, get away from me, you old man. And he would go, you know, so he walked along the beach for about 30 minutes, being watched by everybody, of course,
Mhm.
and just had a great time.
That's, oh
So,
my goodness.
so what does that mean to you and your listeners? I want you to really take a moment
Mhm.
and ask yourself, why would I tell you this story? Is it because I want to make myself look good that I know Michael Jackson and Angelica Houston and blah, blah, blah? No, this is not why I tell you this story. I tell you this story because for all the wealth, all the riches, all the fame that Michael Jackson had, and you admire him, he wanted to be you. His dream, his wish was to be you.
Man, you just gave me
So,
chills with that one. Oh my
don't you
goodness.
think
Yeah.
you ought to work hard to be you? If someone like him cannot be like you, he looks at you and envies every day of your life that you can shop for your own food, that you can go to a mall or a movie and not be molested by thousands of people. you need to understand how important it is to be a human being. What a blessing it is to you for being a human being. God chose you.
Yeah.
You are not a goose. You get to have a really crappy day today and draw a line in the sand, and tomorrow make it a better day. Is this not magical? Are you not magical? If you don't believe you're magical, you need to call me. You need to understand how important you are to the world. Do not let anyone tell you you're not. Do not let anyone choose for you your life. If you know this is the direction, the footpath you must go, then you must go for it. You deserve to do what you want to do in life. Now, you want to hurt people, you got problems. Don't do that. But what I'm saying is, you want to do that which you were put on earth to do. You got to go for it. But you cannot sit in the corner saying Nam Myoho Renge Kyo and expect it to materialize, because you got to fight for it.
Mm.
You have to show that you really want it, which means hurdles in front of you. If you're knocked to the ground, dust yourself off, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and go for it again, because you deserve it. You absolutely deserve it. And Michael showed me that he wanted to be like me. He wanted it so bad. That's why the changes in, the changes in his face, the trying to make some of these decisions that he made, because he wanted to not be always something that was a product.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to be thought of as a human being. And he could only do it with just a few people. Elizabeth Taylor was one of them. But I mean, there were only a few people that would treat him like a person,
Mm-hmm.
and not a commodity. So please remember that Michael Jackson, you may have wanted to be Michael Jackson, but more importantly, he wanted to be you.
Terri, I think that is the most powerful thing that's been said on this entire podcast in the last 3.5 years almost. That was absolutely beautiful.
That's what I'm talking about. Captain EO. Okay.
Yeah.
Something you thought, you guys are going, wow, that's wild. How did it ever get made? But magic, you get the opportunity. One of the reasons it's great to be a performer, voiceover artist, actor, director, whatever, is you get to get together with people that are just so, you get to be around people. You get to be people who have accomplished things that they've accomplished, and they talk to you about the pros and cons of it.
Yeah, yeah.
No, they talk about, this is the pro of it, this is the con of it. Bottom line is that, if you make each day thinking about what you can do for others, how can you make their day better? A kind word, calling somebody that you haven't talked to in a while. It doesn't always mean money. It just means tolerance. As I said before, my father said, lead with tolerance. My father also said, poison isn't effective unless you take it. Poison is not effective unless you take it. So if you're getting epitaphs thrown at you, people are calling you names that you shouldn't. Remember, if you don't embrace it into your body, that's not you. That's not you. This is someone who's trying to mess with you, and you are intimidating to them. If you are the focus of this person and they start to do this stuff to you, something about you is intimidating them. I know in your head you'll be saying, what in the world could I be intimidated? But it's the truth. It really is the truth. If people don't spend time with people for no reason, so if they're spending time dissing you, there's something about you that unsettles them.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
That's good on you. That means you got something special going on. Don't lose it. And don't let other people tell you that your idea is stupid. They often say, the more stupid your idea, the better, the more money you make. Pet rock, Post-it note.
Oh my goodness. Oh, Terri, you got me almost emotional after hearing some of this stuff. Goodness. I thought we were here talking about Muppets and Captain EO. We're having motivational speeches. This is great.
Gotcha.
I know we need to go ahead and wrap this up in just a few moments, though. Before we do so, Brian, give me your final thoughts on Captain EO. Where are you at with this piece years later?
I Captain EO is just a really fun kind of snapshot into like popular culture of
Mhm.
that time, right? In the kind of the mid 80s. You talked a little bit about it there, Terry. Like it's hard to quantify how crazy everything that had to do with Michael Jackson was. And it was, a couple of years, I think, after Thriller and this came out, and just all of these, you know, genius titans of industry coming together to put this project together. And on one hand, it's weird that it happened at all, but on the other hand, it's amazing that it happened, and how much people were drawn to it, would make the trek to Anaheim or to Orlando or to I think Tokyo and Paris, where they were showing these at the different Disney parks. And
Mhm.
just how like innovative it was in terms of what it did on an Imagineering level for the 4D theater, and the design of the sets and the way that it looked, and just this you know what a lot of people say is the most expensive film ever made. So yeah, it's really fun to just transport yourself back to that time, and just watch it and be like, man, this was like the pinnacle of what people thought could accomplish by bringing these people together, and that's pretty cool. So
And it's the best music ever. People are
good music,
always
good music.
talking about loving the 80s.
Mhm.
It's the best music ever. And for me to see people who weren't even born at these times falling in love with something like this is an amazing film. And you really get to see. I used to go, they'd go, Michael will see a dance once and he knows how to do it. And I'd go, oh, that's exaggeration, And then I went to watch him rehearse, and he can see it from the side one time. And I thought, oh, like I thought they were like standing with him and teaching him. No, he just sits on the side and watches it once and then can do it. And
That's
you go, oh
crazy.
my gosh, you could put him anywhere,
Mhm.
and he would go. Now, a lot of them were his moves, but it's the moves together.
Mhm.
And then one more
Mhm.
thing before you go, let me tell you a couple of really fun hacks.
Okay, go for it. Go for it.
Number one fun hack is when Michael Jackson rises up in the first introduction and you see him from the back,
Mhm.
many women whistle because it's such a great butt and whatever it's saying, right? Hate to break your heart, but it's a girl. That is actually Michael Jackson stand-in, and not Michael Jackson at all. And they looked so much alike from the back and from the front a little bit, but really from the back and side. So she shot a lot of that behind the over the shoulder so he could rest, because his work never seemed to stop. Also, there were two amazing characters from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure known as Pop and Taco and Pop and Reggie.
Mhm.
Somewhere in the world, there is footage of myself, Michael, and these two guys pop locking to some music. It was one of my favorite experiences I've ever done, being able to pop lock with the greats.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, Michael loved these two guys, and these two guys were in the jukebox suits, the rainbow suits.
Okay.
So Michael
Okay.
put a sequence, as for a special sequence, where they break out of the pillars and then they jump down. Well, if you watch, they break out of the pillars and it's Pop and Taco and Reggie, a black guy and a Latino guy. But
Mhm.
when they jump behind Michael, they change nationality. So you can actually watch them transfer into, so they're aliens. But anyway, you get to see the characters jump behind him, because by the time they jump behind Michael,
Mhm.
two guys are in the jukeboxes doing the jukebox stuff. So just a couple of fun facts you can look for when you're
That's dope. That's
looking to,
awesome.
yeah. That stuff is fun. There's also a dancer who goes the other way during the dance sequence. He like dances the wrong direction and is known for that.
That's
But
funny.
yeah. And then I stunt doubled for Angelica Houston, so all the flying sequences are me. And then Angelica,
Oh,
yeah, she would
That's
only
awesome.
raise 5 feet in the air. She refused to do it, and
when you're nominated, I guess you got an excuse for that one.
she said, "No, I'm not going 20 feet in the air, you idiots."
Yeah.
You know.
And real quick before we like wrap up this week, Shami, what were your final thoughts on Captain EO?
Yes. Okay, so first off, Terry, during Captain EO, did Michael ever get asked for one autograph? That's that.
On set. No, but when he kissed me goodbye on the cheek, about
Mhm.
4 girls that had been brought by their parents went, "Oh."
That's hilarious.
And then I have an autograph, Shameen. He
Wow.
autographed my laser disc. I'm the one who asked him to do it. He'd never seen a laser disc before.
Oh, that's
Oh.
So
cool.
he loved the
So-
laser disc.
So which
And,
one was it? The Moonwalker or the Thriller
Thriller.
laser
It's
disc?
my Thriller disc. And it's on
Wow.
my wall with my tag. So you had a Captain EO tag that lets you into the studio where
The
we
badge, the
the
badges.
badge, yeah. So he signed he wrote "Ooh to the Geek Girl, love Michael Jackson."
That's awesome.
Because
Wow.
Heidi and Odie were the geek characters.
Mm-hmm. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Awesome.
And Shmi, what were your final thoughts on the movie, real quick, before we
Oh,
wrap up, too?
so I saw the film in 2009.
Mhm.
Like August of 2009. I really enjoyed it. I couldn't see 3D effects, but I really enjoyed the movie and good message. The ending of the ride, it ended on December 6th of 2015.
Oh, that late?
And
Man,
then
okay.
so it ran from depending on it ran from 1986 to 1997,
Mm.
and then it went back again and then Epcot was from June 2010 to July 2nd, 2010.
Dang.
Right, Terry?
Yeah. And the second time around, they had a reopening of it where they made things really move and jump around and stuff. You remember that? And then
Yeah.
they realized I was
all
in the
your paper?
audience and made me stand up and say hello, which was really
Gotta
touching.
eat now, Shane.
Really
That's
sweet.
cool.
So are you in the behind the scenes video or no?
Oh,
Probably
good.
not. The person who did
Fill
the
it out?
behind the scenes
Is it all
video
done? 'Cause that
was the
your
guy who played
responsibility.
Major
Otherwise,
Domo.
I'm gonna leave.
Mhm.
So
Leave.
he was actually an amputee, which was wonderful to not, fake that, but to actually hire someone who was an amputee. And he was with the production company that did the behind the scenes. So a lot of it's him.
That's funny.
I mean, that's
awesome,
the
though.
way to make sure you get in it, right?
Yeah, really.
You'll see
Oh.
my shirt once in a while.
Okay, that still counts. Get you a credit, at least.
I'll go, that's my striped shirt right there.
That's awesome to hear. I love it. I love that we had a chance to go ahead and finally discuss Captain EO. Whenever I started Galaxy of Film, there was like a little mental list of movies I wanted to cover one day, and this was on those. And to
I'd
be
love
able
it to go
to,
back. I'd love to see it back in there so people could experience it because it really
so
was
cool.
wonderful, unique, and special. It was
Yeah.
just great, fun thing to be a part of.
Yeah, and I'm glad we got to talk about some Muppet classic theater too. Some underrated Muppet stuff.
Yeah!
Always some fun times
Talking
here.
about my 2 favorite people.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And
really
Terri,
awesome.
it's been an absolute pleasure having you as our guest star this week. Where can our listeners find you?
www.terrihardin.com is a great way. Google Terri Hardin. That's the easiest way. But step back from your computer. There's a lot. I don't even believe what I have is as much as what I've have as far as all the stuff that I've done. I just got to say no more often. No. But anyway, that's where you can find me on Instagram, Terri Hardin Legend. I do a broadcast every Monday and Friday. Just Google Terri Hardin or search me in YouTube or Facebook. And we don't know how long Facebook. Yeah, I can still broadcast on Facebook, but the private groups that we might have to fix.
So Max, also I've got some exciting news for you for Terri. She's almost completed on. She's going to be now almost being wrapped in the UK by my friend Jacob Davison Talent. So I hope
nice.
So now you get to see Terri everywhere, right, Terri? Is that what Jacob was saying?
Yeah,
See you, right?
Jacob's a real darling person. What's funny
What's
is
her address?
our,
I need
our
it.
emails and our texts are,
I
I'm
need
busy,
her
I'll get to
address.
you. Me too. I'm busy, I'll get to you. I'm busy, I'll get to you. Okay, hang in there. I really want to hear what you have to say. Yeah, me too, but I'm really busy. You know. So he's already one of my best friends in my opinion. So thank you, Shamim, for that.
And Ryan, of course, we're always going to get you back on here. You're here like every other week, anyways, my man. Where can our listeners
Absolutely.
find you if they don't follow you already?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. Max, this was a really fun episode. Glad to be a part of it. And it was a
Okay,
pleasure
sign it and go.
hanging out with Terri for a little bit and hearing all those amazing stories and all that motivation. I'm ready to go tackle the world now. So
There
appreciate
you
that,
go.
Terri.
Go, Brian.
That's right. That's right. If you want to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram. It's mostly Star Wars stuff. It's at astro_droid_, and then follow along with me on my own podcast. It's Drink the Movies. Wherever you're listening to this, we do a movie and a cocktail every week, and just having a good time over there. So check those out. Appreciate that, and thank you again, Max.
Of course, of course. And Shamim, I know obviously we know it's no secret. The movie's coming out at some point soon.
Yes.
Don't take
Where
it in.
can our listeners find you on social media?
So you can find me in the Galaxy of Film Facebook group. You can find me wherever Terry is. Actually, Terry is going to be doing the. Are you doing MouseCon again, Terry? Right or no?
I did the
MouseCon?
first one, but now Disney had a fan club this weekend
Ah,
in Anaheim.
and then so basically, what's your next con, Terry? Anything?
Disney had a fan club, and then after that, I'm doing the Chuck Jones Red Dot auction gala because I did a painting for them. I do one every year. So
yeah, so the next time I'll see you most likely is my birthday or
Yep.
Hollywood show, right?
yes, exactly.
Where can the
So-
listeners find you, Shamim? They gotta get you too, man.
Yeah, not in my back pocket right now.
Yeah. Everyone can't come to your birthday party, unfortunately, but we're gonna find
know.
you.
So you guys can find me at Shamim Q Dana at Facebook, Shamim's Autographs on Instagram, and you can find me at Skywalking Bounty Hunter on 96 on YouTube.
Nice,
Uh,
nice.
You can find me in Thomas and Nicholas's group, the Blockbuster group, and that's where you can find me. And then, so that's about where you can find me. And also in the MouseCon group and the Hollywood Show fan group as well.
Very nice, man.
Yeah. So
And guys, that's going to go ahead
yeah.
and wrap it up for this week's episode of Galaxy of Film. Stay tuned because, of course, we got some more special stuff coming to you guys in the future, including next week. It's been an absolute honor talking about some Captain EO and Muppet Classic Theater here with Terry. Thank you again for coming on. And yeah, stay tuned, guys. And if you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us an iTunes and Spotify review. Drop a subscription over on YouTube. It helps out the show much more than you can imagine. And we'll talk to you guys next week. Bye, guys.
Recording has ended.